Call this Board of Trustees work-study meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 6:00 p.m. on July 14th, 2025. For the record, board members present are Kim Brady, Ileana Garza Rojas, Marjorie Barnes, Carolyn Benavides via video, Paul Gilmore, Randy Shackman, and myself, Cassandra Hatfield. We constitute a quorum and may conduct business on behalf of the district. Next, we have audience for guest. Do we have any audience for guest tonight? All right, with no audience for guest, we'll move on to item number 3, which is our discussion items. So 3A is our legislative update for the 89th legislative session. Mr. Marsh.
Thank you very much. We're going to provide a brief high-level overview. And just to show you, we had our first webinar with the attorney to tell us all the updates. And there was 109 slides. 2 hours later, we found out there were a lot of different things we're going to have to do. So this will be a high level. Our objectives tonight is, I said, do that high level overview, talk about specifically the required near-term implementation and what has changed. Actions that need to be taken is administratively review the legislative changes. TASB has a survey to get information back from the district, which we will complete by July 18th. The board action, y'all will consider legislative summaries and adopt policy revisions accordingly. One of the ones that has to be done by September 1st is library materials. And what has changed is establishes new procedures for acquisition and review of library materials. And what must be done, we're awaiting TEA's model policy. Indicate in the TASB survey whether to form a school library advisory council, which they call SLAC. So that's really good. And you have to prepare to adopt EFB local revisions by September 1st, 2025. So there is a cross-functional committee that's working on that right now in the district, and will give us a recommendation by the end of the week. Okay, now, Senate Bill 401, and this is going to be a pretty substantial explanation. And so we brought in the experts to give us all the details on it. So, turn it over to Chris Moore.
Got you.
Do you guys want to come over here because we have the mics?
Sure.
I don't think they can hear you.
Yeah.
Carolyn's on a Zoom.
Okay.
Carolyn, can you hear? Okay.
So, good evening, everyone. Chris Moore, Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Renee Putter, Director of Athletics. And so, with regard to Senate Bill 401, we'll give you a quick high-level overview of what was in place over the last couple legislative sessions, kind of how that's dovetailed and transitioned into a different Senate bill, and then kind of what the expectations and needs are from all of you as a board with regard to votes and pieces that need to come from it. Are the other slides in there, Brian, is just this one talking point?
They're
all of them?
all-
Okay,
yeah.
very good.
We're
All right.
good.
So with Senate Bill 401, you see there it came from out of this 89th session. I'm sorry, Carl.
You can go sit where you can sit. No.
It came out of the 89th session, this most recent session, and it's proposing a change to the education code, and it's all about eligibility for UIL activities. And while it's Renee here from athletics, it's not just athletics, it's UIL athletics, UIL academics, and UIL fine arts. And so the bill mandates that schools must allow non-enrolled students, such as homeschoolers, and that's the vernacular that's written within, to participate in UIL activities unless the school district, or if it's a charter school, they're in the same situation, they have to formally adopt a policy in order to decline the participation. And so how it's transitioned, if you go to that next slide, what it was before, I've mentioned kind of how it's adjusted over the years. I believe it was the 87th session, 4 years ago. House Bill 547 was introduced, and that allowed districts, they could opt in, they can opt in to allow homeschool participation. It was not a requirement to vote for it. It was not a requirement to vote against it. Districts simply had the option to vote either way or not vote. Homeschool students within that House Bill 547 If a district did elect to vote that into place, then homeschool students could attend the campus closest based on their residential address. How it has changed this year with Senate Bill 401, it's gone from a can opt-in to school districts shall provide. There's no wiggle room around it anymore. Districts, it's basically an opt-in. Shall provide homeschool participation unless the board votes to opt out. And so how that impacts the homeschool student, if you will, they can participate in it's again based on residential address, the campus closest to their home, but also if the district that they reside in does not opt in, they can attend neighboring districts, the closest to them with regard to participation if those districts don't opt out. The next slide, how would this impact CFB? Renee can talk through these pieces. It's really, and that's specific to CFB, but she's also spoken to 20 to 25 school districts throughout the Metroplex area, and this is what she's got from the CFB lens, and then what she's gathered from others as well.
So how this will impact not just CFB athletics, if you're talking about eligibility, that it does affect the fine arts side, the academic side to participate in UIL. This is not talking about, oh, can they come and be in a choir concert or a band concert. This is competition-wise. So you're thinking about academic competition, one-act play, UIL band, marching band, the solo ensemble, those type of things, as well as athletics, which athletics govern totally 100%. Everything we do is UIL aligned. So eligibility and grade checks, grading periods don't always align with ours. So there's a lot of different in eligibility on a pass-fail, how it doesn't match with the 70% passing and the no pass, no play law with the state of Texas. Behavior, student code of conduct, extracurricular code of conduct does not apply to them. It applies to our kids, but does not apply to homeschool because they're not officially enrolled. Remember, they are coming to just play, not to be enrolled, okay? So that could impact as well. Funding, remember, we do not receive state funds for them for any participation costs. Okay, so that does impact not just athletics, it impacts our school district as a whole. Outside workouts, non-enrolled students may not work with outside trainers. If we allow them to come in, they don't get to work with outside trainers. They don't get to participate in their homeschool leagues. Some homeschool participants may think they can go do those things. They can't. So we have to govern that as well. So that impacts us.
And those are both UIL requirements.
That is correct. Roster management, performance based solely on practice performance could impact your already CFB enrolled kids by them coming in and also participating.
And then the next slide, this is a survey that Renee put out, and you can see there, you want to talk through those, Renee?
Absolutely. We surveyed around 23 school districts. One right now is definitely an opt-in, and that is Keller ISD. As you can tell, the rest of us, especially around us, who we play, are not going to opt in. They're choosing to opt out as the wish of us to opt out as well, as you can tell. And therefore, you know, if you have kids in CFB, they wouldn't be able to go to LISD or Plano or Coppell to participate. They would have to go back and participate in their homeschool leagues.
So on the next slide, this is for you all as a board. A formal vote to opt out has to be recorded and it has to be submitted by every district in the state of Texas by September 1. If an ISD does not vote, then it's automatically opted in. Homeschool students will be able to participate in the UIL activities as written into the new law. And then with regard to the recommendation of CFB admin to all of you, it would be to opt out of that new Senate Bill 401. And so with that, we'll answer any questions you might have.
So I know for a lot of some sports, like especially with varsity kind of things in high school, they have to try out in order, so that would not apply to homeschool students coming in. They wouldn't have to try out to be on varsity?
They
or
would be part of the program, but yes, on varsity, I mean, all of ours, aside from really football, we'll take any football player you can find. But yes, They want to try out, and
So homeschoolers would
They would
still
try out.
have to try out, they just, okay.
Yeah, and then say they don't make it and they want to go in the off-season, they could still participate in the off-season. Or go to a different sport and try out to
Yeah.
a different sport.
But in general, the coaches would be managing all of these things, the grade checks.
Yes, even if they came in and they wanted to say they didn't make the team and they're in the off-season, we'd still have to do all those things.
Ms. Benavides, do you have a question?
Yes, how many do we have participating right now?
None, we did not opt in, we did not choose to do this in the past couple of years. Our stance was if you wanted to participate, please enroll in our school district and become one of our students, because we'd love to have you, and that is the way to participate in the years past. Then Senate Bill 401 came out and changed that.
Any other questions, Ms. Benavides? Okay, Mr. Gilmore.
So you don't have any idea how many calls do you get asking that kind of question?
I get anywhere between 10 to 15 calls a year inquiring about it. And in the past years, I've always asked them to, please come and consider our school district and enroll in our school district. We have great programs here.
Is
And
it
we'd
more
love you to be a
towards the
student.
sports or to the arts?
Well, and I talked with Mark Rohr today, and he said that they get questions all the time, that they want to just come and be on the one-act play. And he has told them in the past years as well, please enroll in our school district.
Having been in that world, I would say, just knowing the sports through the homeschool, that you wouldn't have the big a need for people wanting sports here, because every sport is offered out there through the homeschool system. But the arts is where the marching bands, the choirs, that's kind of where I was wondering about. So.
Right.
I have a quick question for you. So
Sure.
if we do, let's say we opt in, we would have to set up a whole system for our homeschool students to be able to be eligible through Parent Square, because it would be a separate entity from being enrolled, is that correct?
That is correct.
So we would have to do something just completely different for
That is correct.
a select few students. Okay, thank you.
Something to keep in mind, a big challenge is the logistics. So we
Mhm.
basically have a month, really less than a month, to be able to think this all through and handle all the logistics and unintended consequences. I think the real question is that enough time to be able to implement something at this magnitude with fidelity?
Understood. Thank you.
So also, if you go back to that map, and we were the ones that opted in,
All those.
then all those students in the surrounding area would be eligible to come to us. So that would open a new logistical system, as
They
Ileana
would be
referred to.
eligible to come to us.
Uh-huh.
They wouldn't be varsity eligible
Okay.
because they would still have to sit out a year, but they would be eligible to come to us. That is the UIL stance.
And just to be clear, no funding, right?
No funding,
No money attached to this homeschool child?
no ma'am.
Mr. Shackman?
Are there any insurance or liability issues that we need to understand? Because obviously,
They would not be
athletes-
covered under our athletic insurance because they are not an enrolled student. So that is one thing right
That's
there.
what I was
So if they
concerned.
get injured while participating, that's another door we would have to open and go through and look through the logistics of that, but they would not be covered under that.
Awesome.
Other questions? Thank you very much. Mr. Moore, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you guys so much for your help.
Thank you.
Okay, next one is House Bill 1481, Student Device Restriction. And what has changed is requires districts to restrict student use of personal communication devices during the school day. And Dr. Eldridge wanted another cross-functional team committee to work on this, which they met right before this meeting. So they have a draft ready, and they will have that or be able to provide that to us tomorrow. And the recommendation will be is that the phones and watches will be left in their backpacks. And that will be evaluated throughout the year. And again, it's trying to implement something very, very quickly as far as obtaining devices for 24,000 students in storage devices. So we'll have an update, just like the other one here, at the end of the week.
But
Quick question.
Yeah.
So you're saying watches as well?
Yes.
that was,
Now, at what point will they be able to get their devices? Is that something that's just still being worked out?
Yes, we're still working on that, but, you know, if it's in their IEP, or if it's an accommodation, or if it's specifically for curriculum, or if the doctors provides a note, or if the instruction, if it's part of the instruction for that day. But
I
as
think
far
if-
as,
Yeah, I just think, so one additional factor I would say to think about is, you know, a lot of times, especially with extracurricular activities at school, those things are always flux, changing. You know, a coach will be like, oh, never mind, I can't do practice today. And all of a sudden, you know, they don't have practice, they need to be picked up, things like that. Those are instances where parents don't always get that information. And so I would just say, you know, additional factor to think about is how to communicate with parents in terms of things changing throughout the day and picking up students. Because a lot of us don't have the ability to just drop everything and change. So, if there's no communication.
Ms. Benavides?
Yes, thank you. How big of an issue is it for them to have them on their person or in their backpack right now?
It's already in policy.
Yeah.
yeah, it's already in policy, and last year, talking about
ahead.
Dr. Eldridge, she wanted to make sure that that was implemented throughout the district. And that was, and last year, it was probably the smoothest year we've had in quite some time.
The high school students appreciated it. I mean, they didn't realize, you know, how much that took a lot of pressure off of them. I mean, some of the students, because if it's a rule or a policy and everyone has to follow it, then it's not, oh, you know, we don't blame a teacher or a parent. It's consistent. And to me, that's the one thing that we want to make sure is it's consistent across the district, whether it's the watches, the phones, you know, in your pocket, in your backpack. I mean, last year, most of the teachers came up with a different way. Some of them had the things that they put their phones in, some of them had their, just different storage. We didn't micromanage the way they stored them, we just told them we didn't want them to have them. And I think when teachers own that part of it, they create their system, they all worked.
so how much
For
different?
most of the part. I mean, as a parent, you probably could tell me the ones that didn't.
No.
But that needs, that, you know, that's why we need a committee of people that understand every little
Yeah, that's what
circumstance.
I'm saying, just that aspect, I think is probably something that would be very helpful to a whole bunch of parents
Yes.
as you're rolling it out, to just be mindful of maybe
Yeah.
ways to implement it so that teachers are also and admin at the schools are also very aware and making sure that, you know, these things, if there are changes throughout the school day, that parents are notified by the teachers, you know, just whatever. But I
Especially
just
during the
think
weather
that can
things that
be-
happen,
Yes.
right? I mean, and they don't have their phones, I think about weather, but I didn't think about the practices,
But there's
so.
just, yeah, practice it,
Clubs,
and it's not
clubs.
even weather
Clubs.
related. So
Yeah.
I just think it's something that could get very, it could be difficult if that's not taken into account. So
Oh,
just something to
absolutely.
think about, maybe.
It's a great back-to-school clarification for parents and clarification for staff to really bring it in line.
Yeah.
Ms. Brady?
I was just gonna say, but it's great that we've already had a policy in place that we adopted last year. So that this shouldn't be that painful. It really shouldn't.
Well,
And
the-
how much different does this policy need to be from what we currently have?
This
We
this
just need to
one,
expound on it a little bit. What the principals asked for this morning is consistency. They said we don't want to have to have the responsibility of determining how we will individually implement it. They've asked exactly what Dr. Eldridge said, that it all be consistent, they all do it the same way. So if you go to another campus, it's the same rules.
Smart, that's a great idea.
Thank you for the
Mr. Gilmore?
clarification.
Well, I assume there's policy in place for when they get caught taking it out, and what the procedures are, or is that up to each individual teacher?
Well, and that goes back to the consistency issue with, okay, I didn't get charged here, you didn't give it back to me, so that's, you know, why we wanted to make sure our principals were meeting, discussing it, and to make sure it is consistent like that. Because, you know, for so long, we still are concerned about safety. And so parents feel better if they can just communicate with their children. However, now this is taken a different level, and we need to be mindful of that. So how do you put all those pieces together? And again, it's a pretty short timeline, but we will make it work.
So if the policy has to be adopted by September 18th, are we planning on putting it into practice the first day of school?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have
I can't
a
go.
call with TASB Policy Services tomorrow to work through, prioritize, and I'll be mentioned later on, as far as the ones that we're gonna need now, and then a lot of these will be in update 126 and update 127.
So will there's a lot of fun TikToks and all the things out there right now about this, so at what point will you guys feel comfortable sharing with parents what the plan is?
Well, I think initially, we're gonna communicate that here's what's coming down, right? That this is a cell phone issue. In the plan will be probably ready by their school nights, or, you know, so principals can say, here's how we're gonna implement this. And Karen's a big part of it in communications, like, how do we make sure we get the message to everybody correctly? Just putting out an initial letter saying, here's a, you know, it's not CFB, it's everybody. It's, you know, coming out of the Texas, new requirements.
Yeah.
So
It's not just us.
it's initial communication.
Please say that, it's not just us.
It's not just, no, it is.
I don't make the rules.
Big bold letters, legislation.
We
And
don't
here's
make the
every,
rules.
yeah.
Not us.
Yeah. So we worked on that, yes, definitely. So,
Any other questions on the cell phone? All right.
And I just want to bring to your attention some of the items. This is just a few of them. They'll be included in update 121. I'm not going to cover them all. I just want to point out a couple of these. You've got one that's DBD. There's been some questions about that, administrator conflict of interest. And that is where an administrator cannot work in any capacity with any vendor that's a vendor of CFB. Unless there is a contract and it's sent to you as the board and you all approve it.
That's cool.
All righty.
Okay, Senate Bill 11, Bible reading prayer periods, and that will allow for staff to be able to have Bible readings and prayer periods during their lunch times or any break time.
But that we would be voting on a time during the school day for that to be happening.
No, it
it's
specifies.
lunch.
Oh, it's
Oh,
very
it's
It's got to be
specific.
on their own
Okay.
time. It can't be
I
So
read
it's
that
for
14
the
times yesterday.
teachers to be able to have their own,
any employee.
any employee to be able to have their own prayer time or, okay, during their lunch.
I'll go over a few more here in a minute.
They can't promote it, but they, like, let's say some of our teachers may go eat in their car, but they're kind of scared that, oh, what if I'm reading this, or they're in the lounge, you know.
Yeah.
Now that there is gonna be a policy, it won't be so much, it's not a shaming of, oh, she's reading her Bible. You would be, I mean, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't
just-
have ever thought that was a problem, but, okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Lawsuits have been filed, so we're gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah.
On that one?
Yes,
And may I say that it's to all religions, correct?
correct.
To all what?
Type of prayer.
To all
Yes.
religions.
All religions.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and here's some more. In fact, House Bill 2, which is very, very extensive, and Ms. Ells already talked about it in her last presentation, and some of the presentations she'll be providing tonight, is as a direct result of House Bill 2. House Bill 33, active shooter preparedness, and there are multiple policy changes on that. I just want to highlight one, which requires us to have a breaching tool and a shield at each campus, a ballistic shield at each campus by September 1st.
So they increase the safety allotment and then increase the materials required
Yes.
to cover the, okay.
Okay.
And Senate Bill 12, parental rights, huge, huge revisions in there. And you can see DDGA, FNGGF are our grievance policies, and those are going to be substantially revised. Other local codes, DEI prohibitions, student clubs, parental notification. Just want to briefly go through what we're working on. So after the 109-page presentation this morning, we're putting all of these in a spreadsheet, and we can provide that later on, but we're going to break them down by category, and of course, when we have to have it in place, and what the action is needed.
Nice.
So,
Are there specific ones we have to vote on by a certain date?
yes, these
Okay.
are all these right here.
Oh,
So, and I'm gonna have to ask for a volunteer. My vision is blurry and I cannot read this from here, unless maybe I can make it bigger.
which
So-
one, Brian?
Right here,
Oh,
the ones I highlighted, so it's this.
oh, okay, okay.
So Senate Bill 12, the discipline of employees for engaging in DEI duties. Okay. You want to read the next one?
Well, and,
You want me to read it?
Did you want us to read it?
The whole thing?
yes, please.
Okay.
And you have to certify it by September the 30th. So in a board meeting, you'll have to certify that so that's in place. So if
Okay.
you go to the next one, number.
Adopt
27.
a policy for the appropriate discipline of employees, including termination, who intentionally and knowingly engage or assign another person an act prohibited by the controversial topics law. Board vote certified compliance DA by September 30th. Ileana?
Adopt a policy establishing a new grievance procedure that complies with Chapter 26A, under which the board shall address each grievance complaint that the board receives concerning a violation of a right guaranteed by this chapter, include notice and an opportunity to respond to teachers or other employees against whom the complaint is made. Audrey?
Adopt a policy prohibiting an employee of the district from assisting a student enrolled in the district with social transitioning, including by providing any information about social transitioning or providing guidelines intended to assist a person with social transitioning.
Paul?
Adopt a policy establishing a parental engagement policy that one provides for an internet portal through which parents of students enrolled in the district may submit comments to campus or district administrators and the board. 2, requires the board to prioritize.
Whoa.
That did make it bigger, though.
That made it huge.
To prioritize public comments by presenting those comments at the beginning of each board meeting, and requires board meetings to be held outside of typical work hours.
Done. Check.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Just want to make sure everybody understands, so it'll be a requirement that there's a portal for parents to be able to express any concerns that they have. All that information will be provided prior to the next, or at the next board meeting, and then it will have to be read during audience for guests.
Yeah, but it says to prioritize, so what does that mean?
That was the way they explained it this morning.
Like what is your priority? Like, would you read them all?
We're still waiting for additional clarification, but as of this morning, they said they would all be read.
Don't we already do this? Kind of.
Not number one.
They do
number 2 and
audience
number
for guests,
3.
but we have to provide a portal that they,
For everybody to see?
We used to have one called Let's Talk or something like that.
and then the other one that requires board meetings to be held outside of typical work hours, we do that. The only one we do at a different time is our canvassing of elections that and they said that was okay, right? So we're in compliance with that, but
Interesting.
I think they're gonna have to define specifically.
Like I said, there's a lot.
There's a lot, but they
coming,
do
and
say-
a lot more that needs to be worked on.
Randy, what were you gonna
It
ask?
is going to require potentially policy change to audience for guests. For example, your 30 minutes of audience and for guest time may need to be altered Because if you suddenly have several things to read.
Well, would that be under that category? You'd read all that under audience for guests, so
That's what he's
you're
saying,
right.
like if we
That's what
can,
he's saying.
can we still limit it to 30 minutes or not? Like if we have a whole bunch of written
Oh.
things.
Those are great questions, and like I said, we're gonna get more clarity on that, my favorite word. We'll have clarity.
Policy subcommittee, get ready.
Well,
There you
and
go.
my question is, do they have, it says that, you know how you have to say your address, I mean, it
And we
can't,
talked about that. It'd be
did
the
they say,
exact-
you
exact
can't have
same-
these anonymous
Yeah, it would be the
things?
exact same process
Okay.
as when they have to fill it out online. They still have to fill in name, address.
Okay, interesting, okay.
And I
Is
just
there gonna be
wanted
a
to,
special category for Nico this year?
Yeah.
been very quiet. And just want to cover some additional board meeting requirements. And that was referencing the other one earlier. Board meetings must be held outside of typical hours, work hours. And they asked for the definition of that. They said anything before 8, anything after 5, and technically lunch could be used. They said that would be pushing it. The next one, notice must be posted 3 days instead of 72 hours in advance of meetings. We already do this, but the example is, it's posted on Friday. It has to be 3 days prior to the meeting. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So effectively, they've added pretty much another day. And board meetings must be recorded. And this is already everything that's being done now, except for what's new is resolutions must be posted within 7 days of approval. So any resolution that y'all approve, it has to be posted on the website within 7 days.
On the website, not just in board book?
Signed or not signed?
That's
He's
what they said, it
expecting
just has to
clarity.
be-
Item for
7 days.
clarification.
But if it's approved, it's approved.
And this is just ones that require board action.
Right, there's
Well,
another.
that's not all of them,
Yeah.
because
This is part one.
Yeah.
these are all
September
the
1.
different categories, because I have them broken into categories. And I will, hopefully by the end of tomorrow, have all of these in there, and it's gonna be substantial.
Do you know how many laws were passed that affected public education this year about?
I do not, but I can find out.
Okay, I'm just curious, like the number and why it's so important to meet with our representatives.
Well, it was far more extensive than we realized, as
Agreed.
far as the policy changes.
Yeah, I think it would be, like, as a part of this, as these things start to roll out, tracking any challenges, to be thinking forward to the next legislative session of cleanup bills
Yes.
would be super helpful, because when we go meet with our representatives, we could say, bill, this was the impact, and here's a modification that could really help us, or here's the cost that it had on us.
Right, and our reps may not understand the impact that comes down the pipeline to us, because while it's perceived as a great idea, once you figure out how is it going to get executed, where's the money, where is it coming from, what are we doing? Is it really gonna support and help our community? Is it a yes or a no? And to your point, that's a great idea, so.
Well, if you look at security, for example, now they've told us that we have to have the shield, where do you put that? And who has that, I mean, just all the questions for all the things that sound good, but logistically, how do you implement certain things? And you said you were giving us more money, but we don't even know the cost of those.
It ranges anywhere from $400 or $500, depending on size,
Yeah.
to $7,000-8,000, depending on what size and velocity of a bullet it's intended to stop.
But if you think about that, who's gonna go get that when something happens, and where are you gonna put it that it's safe, that kids aren't just using it?
Logistics. is what
Logistics.
we're
Yes,
talking
exactly.
about. How do we implement
To your
everything?
point about the finances, the first set of requirements aren't fully funded.
Right.
And so the increase was represented in some of the circles I watched on the Ledge Online, that they were fully funding all the previous requirements, and now they're adding additional costs.
Yeah.
So more expenses, still the costs aren't meeting up, right? Okay.
Just show you all right here, just to show you how many categories there are. This is the list of categories,
That's a lot.
the policy changes. And over here, you'll see what's required, the action policy resolution. Some of them require a policy and resolution, and a resolution. And one is just communicate changes. None, that refers to ones that are law. So obviously, the board does not have to take any action over the administration. They will be updated in 126. And we're also having a column for, is it unfunded mandate?
Cost to implement.
Yes, and how much it costs.
That's great.
We're gonna track all that.
Do you
But
have
you
an
also think about
example?
school starts in a month.
Yes.
Right.
And this is, a lot of these things, we have to make our administrators, our campuses aware of what they need to do. So between everything else.
And we have a special session.
Yeah, and we still have a
Right,
special
and
session.
who knows what's
Right.
gonna happen
Which
in that
add
session.
to.
So,
And we also will have our communication plans linked in here.
Okay.
Staff, is it parents, is it staff and parents?
So,
Good.
one more question.
Yeah.
Can you, since Mr. Gilmore is new to the board, is there an example of an unfunded mandate that would affect us this time? Do you have a good example of that?
Well, I think technically that one on the shield
On the
and
shield,
and the
security.
breaching tool, because they didn't specify money for that, but they're going to say that it's included.
Like currently, per campus, we get $15,000 per campus for safety and security. I can guarantee you the cost of a security guard exceeds $15,000. They've bumped it up to over $33,000, still not enough, and now they've added additional requirements.
Thank
And
you.
there's other things, a lot of other things that'll be included, and that's revisions to the Public Information Act. A lot is coming.
Lots
But
of
we have
changes.
to prioritize all that that's due by September 1st. Some of these are effective immediately, but you have a date of September 1st to do the policy component. Are there any questions? Oh, good.
you just
Yes.
logged off.
Okay.
You said
Fortunately,
policy.
everyone has a copy of this. Thank you, Dr. Eldridge.
Signing off.
I was so excited.
And we're done.
So I mentioned earlier, the survey deadline is July 18th. We'll have it done. And I mentioned TASB conference call. We'll have that tomorrow. Discuss the prioritization and it's what we're going to need. They've been great to work with. Communication. And communicate effective immediate legislation changes effective September 1st. And we'll have plans for all the rest of them. Policy update will be released mid-October 2025. Model handbook, code of conduct released by mid-July 2025. We believe it'll be the end of this week. And we'll be continuing to watch the webinars offered by TASB to support implementation and customization. And as always, we'll monitor TEA guidance and TASB policy services updates.
So student services is a big job with the new model handbook that we need to get out and also make sure all our parents and teachers know the new, it's a totally revamped code of conduct. So, but we are a good team, we are on it. So, here's just the board ones that, I think I sent that to you, so if everybody wants that to go with Brian's before he gets all that.
Good document.
Yeah.
This is another document that Thompson and Horton provided that
It's
gives
just
some
for
additional
board action, so.
supporting information. Okay, thank you, Mr. Marsh and Dr. Eldridge.
Thank
Any
you,
other
guys.
questions on the legislative update?
Thank you for making that beautiful chart.
That is
was really
gorgeous.
helpful. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, well then we'll move to our budget workshop. Ms. Sell.
Good evening, trustees, President Hatfield, and Dr. Eldridge. I wanted to, frame our conversation tonight in light of the legislative changes. There is significant changes and that impact our revenue. And I also wanted to review a little bit of our timelines on how that affects coming to that projected revenue number, because obviously my goal as CFO is to communicate a timeline when I get to tell you that we have a balanced budget. I don't know how possible it is for this year, but I was very encouraged by our ratings call in light of our upcoming bond sale. We got a lot of positive feedback about our strategic outlook in resolving the budget deficit within 2 to 3 years. So in case you hadn't read Moody's or S&P, we've retained our ratings at AA+ and AA1, so I'm excited about that and looking forward to Wednesday, of course. But we're really going to focus on the general fund impacts because that is, you know, the biggest absorption of some of these changes at the state. And then we'll look at what we can do for employees as a district. There's lots to consider when you think about what hits the teacher's bank account on the 20th of every month. It's more than just base pay, so I wanted to cover a couple of those components and a couple other considerations as we get forward, go forward towards a budget draft. So a little bit about revenue. It's a pretty complicated projection. It starts using the best data points that we can collect. And this is not a flex, this is actually a screenshot of what the data table looks like, and this is only a snippet that takes 2 or 3 swipes before you get to the bottom. But we start with the best data on our students. This year we're fortunate to have the demographer report to reflect as our current projected student enrollment. And then we do a lot of work with student services to trend out, you know, things like attendance and all the various student characteristics that have targeted program funding. You know, we do need to keep a laser target on our revenue projection as we go through the year. So after every marking period, we do another iteration of this. When you hear the word basic allotment increase for our district, you might think that there's more money. However, when you think about what the required expenditures are coming down the pike and the frozen golden penny yield, we really do need to exercise some caution when we think about what additional revenue dollars are out there and available to spend how we would choose. Because a lot of the legislation is, here's this dollar, but you have to go to the concession stand and buy Sour Patch Kids. You can't buy anything else, right? So it's very, I'm in basketball season, y'all, sorry. There's a lot of metaphors. I'll try to.
No, it's great. It makes it real.
But it's, yes, that's a good
I
example.
like the Sour Patch piece too, not M&M's, Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah, no, there's no chocolate right now at the Settle House. But there's also a lot of new data points that we're having to collect information on, and you know, if there's a motto that we have in business services, it's timely and accurate information so we can make informed decisions. And so when you have new ways of projecting revenue and it requires new data points, that takes a little bit deeper dive to get to that accuracy goal. But I will tell you in the most simplistic terms, it is still, the name of the game is still number of kids and how often they're here. That still remains the major matrix of you know, how we project revenue. But just, these are a couple little acronyms and we'll go into detail a little bit more, but if you exclude the teacher raise that was legislated, we really are only going to see about $3.5 million of new money. So we have to be very strategic about how we spend this new money, and I'm going to go in a little bit more detail about how what we're allowed to spend where. But the glass is the glass. It's determined by the number of students, and then we look at whose share is what. And you know, if we look 10 years ago, the district generated 77% of the revenue that went into the school funding formula glass. Now we generate 90% with local tax effort, and the state share is closer to 10%. However, the district does not determine the funding formula, and we do not have anything to do with property values. That is also a decision that's made outside this board, and all of those things affect the next slide that we look at, which is recapture, also known as Robin Hood. And so I include this slide here because when we think about how do you get to a balanced budget in school finance speak, Robin Hood, recapture, whatever you want to call this, contracted services for instruction is how it's formally labeled in function manual. This is an expenditure. But when we talk about how to get to a balanced budget, we need to deduct it from revenue and then look at that as our target, so that we can get to that perfect little zero at the bottom of revenues minus expenditures. And you can see that it is all over the place when you look at the last 4 or 5 years, and that is a reflection of whether or not a new homestead exemption, like we saw in tax year 24. You can see how when the homestead exemption was $40,000, we had a pretty significant share going back to the state, and then that taxable value dropped. And so we don't really see additional dollars, we see a reduction in recapture. But I'm gonna show you what we spent in FY24, and the bulk of that is people. And 84% to be specific. And if you think about the fact that we had less revenue than $301 million in FY24, the chunk of our revenue going towards payroll is even larger. So when the denominator is lower, that percentage is going to grow. And we're closer to 90% of our revenue is going towards payroll. Investing in our priorities, people are definitely a priority in CFB. And so just a little bit about our timeline and some of the ways that it's going to kind of impede my ability to give you the most accurate information is that we really need to wait for July 25th certified values. And that's because that very complicated data screen I showed you, you scrolled twice down, I have to provide the difference between the old property values with the old homestead exemption and the new property value, taxable property value with the new homestead exemption to accurately project what the additional state aid is, their hold harmless money. So we want to make sure that we count all of our pennies and our dollars before we get to that target expenditure. But then on August 3rd, we will receive our tax rate, our maximum compressed tax rate from the state. It's not going to be as compressed as it has been in prior years because of the other levers that have been moved, but it is going to be something to wait for. And then you'll see a budget draft presented on August 7th. So that's the big draft meeting. And so we still have plenty to discuss. And I wanted to review just a little bit about some of these significant dollars related to the legislative session. When you look at what the teacher retention allotment was in Article 1, it very clearly states that teachers with 3 and 4 years experience will receive $2,500 in a teacher retention allotment funding, and everything beyond 5 is $5,000. That is a statutory requirement. We have to comply with that. They are giving us the dollars. We have to pass that directly to a teacher. So that is not up for discussion. We can't get around that. What we do have to decide is what we decide for that year 01 teacher. So what is that top part of that salary schedule look like for teachers? And that's where investing in competitive compensation comes into play, clarifying what we want to target there. Now we are still in the middle of our TASB salary studies, so they're doing their comparisons, and that will be ready on the August 7th meeting. So But what I wanted to target your dollar amount to, it could be up as much as $8 million in funding for this particular piece of Article 1. And I say that because we're still defining what positions in CFB-ISD are eligible teachers. And I just threw up all the TASB guidance in case you just want to read the nitty-gritty. But, you know, just like the other pieces of the legislative changes require policies and resolutions, I'm on the other side looking for how are we going to get audited for compliance. And so, you know, how would I define a teacher? Well, in the PEMS world, we classify every FTE by what they do, their roles and responsibilities, in a role ID. And the teacher is a role 87. In code, it describes in great specificity that it is a FTE greater than 0.5, more than 4 class periods in front of kids. That's what it means. And so we have role 87 positions in this district that might have pull-out sections of kids, but may not be in the master schedule that way. If we don't reflect it correctly in the October snapshot submission, where we send the master schedule and all of our FTEs and which teachers are attached to this section and how many kids are there, we're not going to generate the funding that we want to extend to these role 87 positions. And so I'm specifically kind of targeting that intervention position that we need to make sure that we are doing the nuts and bolts piece that will generate the funding that we want to extend the raise to.
Dyslexia interventionists, behavior interventionists,
All of that.
people that come to classrooms but not necessarily assigned a classroom.
So that means we might have to rethink how we execute in that role, right?
Right.
It might mean that they have a class period with specific kids. And so that is a collaboration that is very hard to kick off before the first day of school, but we have to have a framework if we are going to extend the raise to those positions.
Got it.
And so that's a collaboration between counselors and student services, and it's a big room, so.
What are we talking about, OTs, PTs, speech therapists, all of these people?
Now,
Or are they
those are
classified
specific
differently?
services, and that has a whole other funding mechanism.
Okay.
So, but the Role 87 is the talk of the town right now.
Okay.
So what about everybody else? So, you know, when the legislators were just debating this targeted funding investment in instruction, you know, there was a lot of board members like yourselves that reached out to representatives and said, what about our bus drivers? What about our custodians or our food service workers? Nothing you're, you know, putting into this big bill is really, you know, going to benefit some of our most, our pay grades that need the most investment, because we always make sure that the classroom's taken care of, right? But in CFB specifically, these are the pay grades that we are targeting this TASB salary study on. This is where we need to make sure that we stay market competitive. And so we got a whopping $45 per adjusted ADA, which will shake out to about $972,000. Now, keep in mind, these are all very preliminary adjustments. It could be, you know, plus or minus, but for the sake of what I know today, this is where we're at. It's very important that I say out loud, to keep us compliant, that the staff that are not allowed for this funding pass-through are administrators. Anybody serving, like as an administrator serving as an educator leader, anybody that's on the superintendent leadership team, campus leaders, any other central administration supervisor down to my accounts payable supervisor. They are not eligible for this funding because of how this bill was written. It affects this building, it affects ESDC and the service center.
And all campus principals, APs,
Yeah, we are not allowed to devote any of the staff support retention allotment to those positions, correct? So.
May I ask, does that include the dyslexia teachers?
And that's what we were trying to determine, if the dyslexia teachers will qualify under the Roll 87 or the staff support. And so I think our goal is to keep them Roll 87 as they're coded now, just making sure that the mechanics are in place to make sure that that funding is generated.
Thank you.
You bet. So in the drama that unfolded in the last weeks of the 80 night, there was a big debate on to increase the BA or not to increase the BA. That was the question, and they didn't want to increase the BA, the basic allotment. So they created a...
So they made the ABC.
They made the ABCs, that's right.
So we got the BA and the ABC.
Oh my
and the
gosh.
what- They have more
Let's make it-
acronyms.
let's make it harder.
Jackson 5 could come up with a song. So if, and let me tell you the challenge with the allocation for basic or cost is that when you increase the BA, it also affects other calculations like WADA, and we don't have to go into the, but it's a weighted average daily attendance, and that generates extra dollars, but they didn't want to do that. Because they were going to freeze the golden penny to pay for all of this investment. So they have a very flat $106 per enrolled student to cover things like the employer required contributions on the teacher retention allotment. So if we truly generate $8 million in teacher pay raises through the eligibility that I was just reviewing, we will have to use this $2.6 million to cover the 8% we are required to contribute to their TRS, because it is TRS eligible compensation.
And that's the teacher retirement system.
That's their pension contribution, or basic Medicare, you're 1.45% on that one, so nobody.
So
gets
this
out of that.
2.6 million's already been, basically been spent.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
I mean, the $2.6 million does give us about $1 million, $1.5 million wiggle room to devote to other raises. So I mean, it's about $1.7 million for the benefits on that $8 million. Okay, so basic math says if we get $8 million, we have to spend $8 million directed towards teachers, and then we'll get just shy of $1 million for staff support, and then the 2.6 for the ABC equals a little over $3.6 million. And we're going through this very targeted because this is how the bill was passed. Because we have other work we're doing in the budget to shore up, a deficit from prior years.
And this is just for compensation.
This is
This
just
doesn't
for
take the
compensation.
BA, small BA.
And the BA obviously is gonna be offset by a reduction in recapture, so we're not gonna see a ton of new money out of the basic allotment. So I wanted to review a couple of other things that related to compensation, and that is health insurance rates. Now, not everybody participates in the health insurance plan, so I'm gonna put that disclaimer out there, but we do have a significant number of folks that do. And so this came straight out of the 25-26 TRS Active Care Plan highlights. These are their new rates with our $350 contribution. That is where we are today. However, I wanted to point out how the premiums have changed over the last few years. I pulled these, the changes from the TRS website plus the United Educators Association. They publish all of the district's contributions. So we're pretty much in the middle as of last year on our health insurance contribution. But you can see in the last 2 years, employees have seen double-digit % increases in their premiums. And I'm not even gonna comment on the other side of benefits on maximum deductibles and what their copays are. I'm just talking about what's hitting their check on the 20th, what's being deducted. And so this 11% increase, while a teacher may be getting a significant 6% raise-ish, they're also going to see a significant deduction. And so we have just about, well, we have over half of our employees. Over half of our positions participate in active care. And the little breakout for 24-25 is right there on the right. And it shows you in the table there at the top, I took an annual effect of the change in premium from our current year to what the new plan is looking at, with no, just looking at the basic premium increases. And I'm gonna pretend I am a 5-year teacher that has decided to, you know, carry the insurance for my family. If I were employee family and on the active care primary plus plan, I will have half my raise taken if I got a 5,000 teacher retention allotment. Half my raise would be taken in just the change in my premium increase. So it is just something to consider. That's what a teacher's experience. We haven't even talked about what a custodian will, or if they can afford to stay insured.
It's kind of outrageous.
You said half our teachers have their spouses?
I'm just saying that if I were a 5-year teacher and I'm
I thought I heard you say earlier that about half of ours.
about half of our positions. So out of all of our entire district, I think we have about 3,600 positions. Half of them are, more than half of them are covered by TRS Active Care, which is our health insurance. And that is a state-run health insurance program that is priced regionally. And it's not a secret that they like to let Region 10 and 11 bear the higher percentage increases because they see that we have the highest cost of living. So like the Region 1 in the Valley, their increase is not this. So yeah, I did a quick, you know, back of the table math. We have to budget for all positions because we offer this benefit for all positions. So if we were to increase the contribution by $25, it would be about $1 million to the budget.
But not everybody obviously would get it, only the people that participate in the health
Correct.
insurance. Okay.
Correct, but it would help participate in the increase by month.
So this proposed $1 million increase would hit that allotment.
It would qualify for
It
the
would qualify
APC.
for the APC? Okay.
May I ask, are there alternatives to insurance or just one buy-in?
The state law only, it requires us to either offer active care solely for medical insurance, or we could opt out and govern our own plan, but then I would petition the board for an additional 3 or 4 people to run the health insurance program. It's a pretty
Complex.
And
it is.
intensive.
I've been in districts where we've done that before, and it's really a challenge. And you're not as competitive because you're, TRS Active Care is pricing the health insurance premiums with all the teachers in the state, whereas we'd only be competing with our 3,600 positions.
It'd be a lot more expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. You have to make sacrifices one way or the other, so.
Yeah.
Another benefit that I've heard, my phone blew up as soon as the word went out, was classroom teachers can now bring their kids for pre-K for free. That is, they are now eligible students if you are a classroom teacher. So again, Roll 87 employee can bring their dependents if they are 4 years old and ready for pre-K. They are now an additional ADA. So that is a savings for them if we have the spots.
That's what I was gonna ask. What are the rules regarding, are they eligible above our, let's say they don't, one of our teachers doesn't live here, but they bring their student, and then even though we're open enrollment, what are the rules for that?
So I don't know all the guidance there.
Okay.
I would say that obviously our free and reduced residents take priority. We place them first. But you're right, we could determine resident over non-resident, we don't have all that guidance yet.
Whether it's intended to be a benefit for our teachers, it may not work out.
You're right.
So that's another logistical issue for me, right? I mean, what could save them a lot of money may not, because of the other parameters we're held accountable for.
Right, and now it's a space issue, right?
Right.
Because if we don't have the space, do we lose a teacher because they can go to a neighboring district who does
Right.
have the space? So there's a lot of things that go into retention. So I put together 3 compensation options that we could consider and discuss. The first is the most simple. You know, I love simplicity, but I do sit next to Tammy Smolskis, our Assistant Superintendent of HR, and we are invested in getting along. But this is a very simple option. It just will make the TASB salary study kind of a nightmare because it does create some inequities. But this first option, it would be we comply with HB2, that's a non-negotiable, and we issued a flat $1,000 increase for every other employee. That would be about $1.9 million, plus the employer contributions that go along with that, and that would bring us in right about the new money target. That would not include any health insurance contribution increase. So that's one. But we did reach out to TASB and ask for their recommendation, and of course they recommended against it. It's just the fact that we are spending all this time trying to make sure our market equity is there for all the other positions. It would really skew our pay grades. But you have to think about $1,000 to someone making 30 grand. You know, that's a significant raise versus $1,000 to someone making 100 grand. So it's a difference, right? And maybe percentage-wise, it puts the dollars where it belongs. It just makes the math and making the most of what we've invested in this salary study maybe not feasible. But that is an option that some of our neighbors have done because it's easy to explain.
Does that include administrators as well? Anybody?
It would be everybody.
Okay.
And so you could shave off a little there. I mean, these are just options. So then I continued on this flat, very simple flat raise scenario and said, what would we do if we did an increase in the health insurance? Well, that would be $1 million more. That would take us just a little bit over the new money.
And that's $25 per person that enrolls in that.
$25 per month per person.
Per month per person that's enrolled in this health insurance. Okay.
So, and then the most likely and affordable one would be a 2% off midpoint raise. That would, plus the health insurance increase, that would be about the same. It's just putting the, just putting the dollars strategically may not accomplish what we want to in the TASB salary study if we do a flat 2% off midpoint. Because that means we may not have the budget to put into the paraprofessionals and the auxiliary where we wanted it to. We'd have to do that through steeper cuts.
Okay, say that again.
So, so a 2% off midpoint is not that 7 or 8% raise for a custodian, right? That's a 2% off their midpoint range. And so we're doing this work in the TASB salary study to make sure that we invest in the pay grades that have not been invested in previous years. So we would have to be very strategic in cutting further to accomplish all the things we're trying to do in the TASB salary study. Because a 2% off midpoint raise is going to max out what we have in new money.
So, let me see if I understand this correctly. That option 1 and 2, doing the 1,000, is not equitable and would likely not match what the TASB salary study is going to say because we need to invest in our auxiliary and paraprofessionals. But doing the 2% off midpoint is also not going to get us to where we need to be on the TASB salary study, because it's still, because of their pay, a 2% to them is not as much as what's necessary to get us where we need to be.
Correct. So we will have to be very strategic about finding further cuts to accomplish all the things that we want to do out of the TASB salary study is the point.
When will the TASB salary study be available?
It is supposed to be presented in the August 7th board meeting. And so I anticipate that it adhere to the reporting deadlines and be available that week before.
But we also have to contend with all of our peers
Correct.
and what they're doing. Do
And
we
you
know a
will
little bit about
see
that?
most of our peers are doing 3% off midpoint raises. I did pull a few of them. There's a few superstars and other, let's see, where did I find that? I had an informal collection of data. Oh, there we go. Like Alito somehow has a lot of money, and they did their 5% right off out of the gate.
But they're not close to us.
They're on the other side of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd have to move to go see them.
That's pretty far, yeah.
So College Station, same thing, right? They're 5%. You know, the Arlington, the Mansfields, the Planos, they all did 3%. You know, the Richardson did.
So I have those.
Oh, you had yours.
So I talked to Garland, and they are doing their starting teacher at 61.5. And they're following the guidelines that were given with the money we were given. And they're giving nurses and counselors and librarians $1,000, and everybody else non-exempt for $550. And then Richardson's doing 3% for non-teachers. They bumped their starting up to 63. And Louisville is doing 62,525. And then following 3% for all others on midpoint, and they're giving a $7 substitute raise. So I'll hand this out to you. Capel went up to 64.2 and 3% of all others on the midpoint. And Capel, I guess, is up to 350 on their health care. So.
We ought to do that.
Right. So there's also,
Starting, I put a note.
our biggest competitor on the health insurance is
Running
Irving
fast.
ISD. Irving ISD tends to top out on that table, and they are going from 450 to 506 on their health insurance contribution.
Wow.
So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Irving.
What is their
But
deficit?
Irving was already at the top. And
They
if you
stay
go
at
back
the
to that,
top.
we're,
I think their strategy is to stay with that employee-only cheapest plan for free.
but even when we look at the chart that has all the other districts, we're above everybody in Region 10 but Irving.
Correct.
All those other, well, I mean, yeah, some of, I guess I should say, ones
We're-
that surround us, except for Irving, we're above.
Correct. There is,
I mean, Louisville's way down there, Plano.
our biggest, our closest comparative district is Grand Prairie in enrollment and student makeup. And they are now entering active care, where they used to be outside of active care. So they have an employee daycare. They have the most competitive as far as,
Most like us.
most like us, as far as the makeup of their district and their benefit structure. And so they're they're starting their discussion on Thursday.
So one other question I have is historically, and Randy, you may remember this the most, on legislative years, we announce salaries later because there's all the legislative impacts. But on non-legislative years, haven't we announced earlier to help with retention and hiring?
Yes, but not a hard and fast rule, but that was an attempt.
So I guess that would be a question is, because we're, we gotta compete with our competitors here, but then we also, according to what you were saying about our rating, we have a plan to get out, to not be in a budget deficit within 2 to 3 years, and therefore our credit rating stayed the same, and so we are on a path to success. but we have to stay competitive with our peers, so what does that mean for next year?
And that's where I wanted to point out, there's a couple of other budgetary considerations. So I haven't said anything about special education. There will be additional funding for that, for initial valuations, so there will be some revenue there, but it will already be spent,
Yeah.
right? Because we're already spending money on valuations. We're just getting that funded. And then there's gonna be an overhaul of special education funding for 27 to talk about the weights and the intensity of services model. We have no guidance for that yet. as of
But that's
today.
for next year.
Right. The only thing I know for sure that's gonna be effective for this year is this evaluation reimbursement. There is supposed to be guidance, some small tweaks coming out for FY '26, but I haven't seen anything yet. We mentioned the safety allotment earlier, and then there is a little bit of cost savings when it comes to our rehire folks. That provision where we couldn't pass on that penalty, that has all been repealed, and we can now return back to, equal share of like we do everybody else. We have some revenue challenges in this district beyond the enrollment. We've talked some this year about how the SHARS penalties has pretty much wiped out what we had predicted for this current year that we're in. The new ratios make it imprudent to continue to post a revenue budget for SHARS. So we'll keep our very,
Do you want to explain that to Paul? Do you know
Right.
what SHARS?
So SHARS is a program where we get reimbursed for Medicaid eligible services. Typically, we've seen, $3-4 million a year. The federal government audited the Texas Health Services Commission and went all the way back to 2011 and 2017 and passed on penalties to the district that wiped out all the revenue that we had earned for last year.
Just not CFP.
Not CFP.
Yeah.
I mean, we fared better than most, because I don't think we participate in the MAC program, but let's just say it's not prudent to count on any reimbursement for those Medicaid services anymore.
Now, is that for next budget year or the
So
past?
when we think about what was budgeted this year,
Uh-huh.
we had $3 million in there. We're not gonna budget $3 million this year.
Okay.
So that's an impact to revenue. Our investment earnings, nobody's earning 7% in the market anymore. So we're not going to see a $10 million investment revenue. So that's going to be a reduction. Also, we don't have all those ESSER dollars sitting in our bank accounts, so we're not going to earn money on corpus that's not there anymore. We had a few other areas like in the local revenue and E-rate that are being reduced. So we have additional hits to revenue that we need to be very conservative about projecting. But the biggest thing I wanted to lean in on, when I mentioned the frozen golden penny earlier, there is no additional funding for year 26, 27 of this biennium. So all of these allocations and the retention allotments, it's for this year. Now, they'll still be in play for next year, but there's not gonna be an additional.
Not an increase on the
Right, it's not gonna compound. So what I would like to caution the board and be mindful of, if we're going to try to get to a balanced budget, we're gonna have to do that through some pretty significant reductions. So if we are issuing raises at 3% and 5% like some of these folks, and not keeping an eye on what we're gonna do next year, maybe it's that we take a smaller raise this year and keep reducing and refining our staffing ratios to do the same or better for next year. But it's just a consideration.
But we also, I think one of the things that gets lost is our retention funds for our teachers that we retain starting at 5 years. I can't remember all the amounts, but I think 5 years is 500. So I think we need to start showing that, because that is how much does that impact? So if you you know, all the way up to your 20-year teachers, we give them additional money starting in, and we do that when, in
Every 5
December,
years.
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When
It's on-
we give that
I think
September?
it's in December. or-
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to remember, our work anniversary is what we call it. So if you've
it's
been
on
in the
5-year
district,
increments.
every 5 years, we give you a check.
A retention.
And it's,
settlement.
and so a lot of districts don't have that.
I would also like to celebrate, I said it 3 different times in all the presentations today. Our TIA program is one of
It
the
is.
most robust of our neighbors. I think we're only missing like maybe one category, like a coach, that
I
isn't
think that's our
eligible
teacher
for
incentive
TIA.
allotment, where they get to apply to,
Make more money.
make more money based on, you know, lots of different categories, and we're leading the area.
So this year,
in
you saw that we're, you know, max eligibility on our teachers, we would generate $8 million. The TIA teachers that, through their good work and the growth of our students, they generated over $4 million in compensation. I think it's 335 teachers have generated that amount of money. That goes right back to them. So we are very competitive when it comes to compensation. So I just wanted to make sure we included all the pieces of
Can
a
I ask,
paycheck.
which option would you think is more sustainable for the next 2 years? This year, next year?
I would recommend the 2%, both years. I would like to strive for 3 for next year, but to be the most fiscally responsible, I know we can't get away with, you know, less than 2%, and still keep everybody we need to keep. you
Right.
know.
So you're saying option 3?
Okay.
But I think we need to also be mindful of our TASB study for all of our auxiliary staff personnel, our bus drivers, our food services, because 2% from a midpoint is not gonna be very, very beneficial to certain categories.
Agreed. And so the TASB equity adjustments for those targeted areas, that's what Mr. Moore and I will be discussing tomorrow,
Okay.
about how we can fund those through cuts. We had already targeted some of, like, can we survive off less positions in order to stay on the cutting edge for bus drivers? I also preached today all day long. We spent over $1.5 million in overtime last year. So that's a symptom of the district either abusing an employee or the employee abusing the district. $1.5 million is the salary of an elementary school.
Yeah, I think you
So-
can look at that in different ways too. If you don't have the bus drivers,
So that's
then
what-
you're paying overtime for them to, they've hit the overtime category. So I don't know how many bus drivers, but if you think about all the things they drive to,
Agreed.
it's
Which-
not, I don't know if it's,
Which
I
why
hate to
is why
say
we need
employees
to be,
abuse it when it's a systematic.
which is why I want to increase the bus driver pay
Correct.
to be competitive with, you know, our neighbors, you know.
So you're talking about position control from that vantage point?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Ileana, did you have another question? Or was it You guys
No,
were,
that wasn't me.
Marjorie?
Oh, someone had asked me to look up, Irving.
Deficit, I wanna know what their deficit budget.
They were in a budget, deficit, and they are, it looks like maybe, what was it, 15 million, I think is what I'm seeing.
They're in the whole 15 million.
Well, I think all these districts are in budget
they are.
deficits. That's
Very-
what's
I think
so
everybody
interesting
is.
to me, is that the amount of money that is going.
So the things I've seen that have mitigated for the balanced budget, I believe Frisco used TIF funds to help balance their budget.
Interesting.
Our TIF zone's over, you know, ours is done. Steeper reductions, I mean, that's just kind of the name of the game, or they're a fast growth district. I don't know that this big influx of dollars, this $8.5 billion that has gone into public education, is solving the deficit budget issue, because it was very targeted spending.
Well, I think that was a part of the rage of the community, that it's not really compensating for what we need. So I do have a question. The revenue decrease, I think, is 7.7 million, right? And then that we would spend would be, if we chose option 3, if everybody was to that point, plus 4.8. So already off the bat,
Adding
12.
$8 million to the budget deficit. But to
Okay.
that point, we have done a significant amount of work to, absorb the consolidation and do a lot of position cleanup. Last count, we were over $1 million, over $5 million in salary dollars in reductions. We're over $4.9 million in non-payroll. So we're cutting as fast as we can.
But it's hard.
It is.
It's hard when there's not enough money coming in from the state, so.
But also, the cuts take time
That's right.
to also make sure the dollars are being spent on kids.
Right. Yes.
And if you cut, if we just swipe out from underneath the whole thing, it's gonna impact kids. And so by taking our time over 2 years to really see where the dollars need to go to impact kids, we're gonna see student achievement
That's right.
and our growth. And like, what really matters is that we're strategic about the cuts that we make that have the least impact to the classroom.
I will take it on the chin. I will give up points on the first report if it means we beat the accountability piece, right? Because that means you invested it where it mattered and it paid off, so.
So, just a question. Instead of doing a flat 2% for everybody that is not included in the HB2, can we look at doing, I'm throwing out numbers, so nobody hold me to it, 2,000 for our support staff, custodial staff, bus drivers, that pay grade number versus our administrators, and maybe we do a flat 1,000 or something where the midpoint problem is that an administrator is obviously going to make more than our bus drivers or custodial staff. And the administrators aren't the ones who need it. The ones who really need it are the people that are the backbone of the district. So, not that y'all are not, that's not what I'm saying.
We all agree.
But they need more money because they're starting off so much less. So is there a way that we could work out a compensation plan where that is a little bit opposite than just a flat 2%?
I apologize for my battery just dying, but the preliminary TASB pay plan, we're targeting on how we can fund those market adjustments.
So you're saying this plus potential market adjustments
Right.
in a strategic way. So it's
Right.
this plus, but this is just, they're still considering the market adjustments, but it's separate because that TESB study isn't finalized yet.
Right, I understand.
So that would take care of what I think you're
Yes.
saying it would.
What I hear you saying is that you want us to make sure we have a targeted additional investment in those high-need areas.
Correct.
Yes.
But that also to say, if the TASB study comes back and says, nope, you're paying bus drivers spot on, then we're looking at, they're just gonna get 2.5% from the midpoint, which is way less than an administrator is gonna make. There's my problem.
Yes.
So that's why I'm trying to say, well, if TASB says we're doing everything right, everybody's making what they're supposed to be making, then there's no additional funding. So that's what point I'm trying to make.
Well, I think Chris knows, right, don't you kind of keep track of?
Bus pay?
Well, just in general, custodial pay, assistants, all of them.
Like,
Specific with our buses, we comp 20, I think it was 24, 25 districts. We were in the bottom 25% of the comp for drivers and monitors, the bottom 20% of the comp for mechanics, and among the bottom 50% for dispatchers.
Which is
Transportation
partially
is
why
an area
we're,
where we are targeting.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm sure that, we're gonna fix the bus drivers, but then you look at the assistants to special ed or the whoever, the
$13 an hour.
custodial staff or the food service staff, like, it's possible that one of them come back and say, oh, we're doing exactly right.
Yeah.
So then they're not gonna get any additional money.
so when we
That's my
gave
point.
our, when I first got here and we gave them, out of our ESSER funding, the $300 checks, that was life-changing for bus drivers, for, custodial staff. I mean, they cried. And because they saw it, it wasn't, the 2% of the midpoint for a driver would be, it gets lost.
They still get less off 2% off the
Yes,
midpoint.
it doesn't
Exactly.
make
If they're
sense, they need
participating in
a
health
figure.
insurance.
yeah.
But even with that, you all cut a significant amount of overtime from your budget.
$250,000 to $300,000 last year. And it was around 200 to 300 the year before. So, And staffing is a large part of that, you know, and minimizing routes, compressing
Right.
routes. to make-
So we're condensing routes and being very strategic, so we're not just running shuttle buses everywhere. That's part of it.
No, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that at all. All I'm saying is that there are staff that's not coded in 087 or
Right.
administrative code
Right.
are gonna get less money if we do a 2% for the midpoint.
Correct.
And we don't focus on increasing that payment to them.
I think the challenge will be how to communicate that. And from what I've seen in other districts, it would be a range of all staff support retention allotment eligible, employees. And it would be a range somewhere between 4% and 6%. If you do something like $1,000 or $2,000 or something like that.
I would just like us to consider something like that in lieu of just a 2% across the.
What are others' thoughts for
What do you guys think?
considerations as they look at this? Anyone?
I like what Kim's saying.
To give more to, or at least a flat amount more to the, how do you code how does that get coded? I don't be different than administrative staff, teachers.
We'll have to define that.
Okay, that's what I was like, I don't want to say something that I don't want to be,
So there is
rude.
an administrative professional pay plan, but you would need to make sure that it's the categories that, are exempt, that we only do the 2% off midpoint. And then everybody else gets their, what you're describing.
good, that's what, okay.
Yeah, because some counselors can be coded administrators just because that's how they were coded. So if you say, we're not giving, professionals in this administrative category, then that would take out your counselors, unless we get them, that needs a whole coding,
A
a
revamp.
system overhaul as well.
Right. But you all, I mean,
We understand.
you understand what I'm trying to say
Yes.
here, is that I just,
Well, and I
The people
think
who need more help
too,
should get more
just
help.
listen to feedback from other superintendents. We want to draw teachers in, but a lot of times we put, everybody's so competitive at putting, here's the starting salary, that really, it creates kind of a, rift between your veteran teachers that you're making more starting new than I'm experienced and I'm your mentor. And so, while everybody's starting to compete on their little flyers, and you see them all over Twitter, who's, I think that's why the state adjusted it that way. And so, as we're mindful of it, we also want to keep our good teachers. And then I also think we need the data on how many teachers we have in our teacher incentive allotment and what that would mean for them. Because to me, I've been on a lot of, these webinars, and what I see just between all the conversations is really the state wants us to guide our teachers more to the teacher incentive allotment, because you're teaching kids, you deserve this, and it's a huge significant amount in their salaries. And it's guaranteed.
but that's another option that our custodians, our
Exactly.
don't have that option.
Right.
So they're getting what we give them,
Performance pay metrics are very difficult in education if you're not in the classroom.
for sure,
Right.
for sure.
But we remind our teachers, wow, look what they're doing. And then the retention allotment to me is huge. So we have all these things that sometimes don't come out on the just the raised flyer.
For sure.
That has been a tradition and a legacy in CFB that's huge.
So how do we promote that?
I think that's where Tammy and I sit down with Karen
And remind, we sometimes, people just look at what you're getting this year, but they don't look at the whole picture. That we're one of the few districts that still do that. I know Dallas got rid of it. They called it career ladder, and they quit doing it because it was so expensive. Because people stayed, and you're grandfathered once you're in. So those are
I
all-
agree. I mean, and that's kind of the idea behind teacher incentive allotment, right? Is that you don't get it if you leave. You'll generate the funding for the district, but it won't follow you till the following year. So
It's huge.
and from what I've always been told, and mind you, I'm not an educator, but I've always, studied that a 5 to 10-year teacher makes the biggest impact on instruction. And so when you look at the United Educator Association and how they ladder and rank all the districts, you know, maybe starting salary isn't the place to win.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
what I'm
it's
saying.
5 and 10-year teachers. Maybe
Mhm.
that's where we need to be targeting our, you know, our salary schedule, which is essentially why the
Mhm.
state did what they did.
We can't, we just have to get all we have the right people doing the right thing with the right amount, where they feel valued. Because we can't be in the bottom for bus drivers, because that's, if we don't have our kids a way to get to school, that's an issue. And it takes so long to train a driver as well.
So I guess what I hear is that I should come back with the 2% whenever TASB's done with their salary study. I'll have the additional dollars that would be for those targeted pay grades. And then we'll have a sum total of what we're investing in our top budget priority.
Right, because it sounds like it's potentially option 3, which is 4.8, but with the knowledge that the TASB salary study is also going to make some increases to the base pay for those people outside of that.
To support staff.
And
The
we
support
really want to
staff.
make sure it's an increase into base pay, because that is credible compensation for their
Right.
retirement.
Right.
So a flat stipend, while I love those, has to be, in order for it to be eligible for any of that funding anyway, it has to be TRS creditable
Okay.
compensation, so.
Does that hit your point?
Yes.
When the,
And
when
I
you
think when
set
the
up?
final presentation is given, it'll make more sense. I mean, it'll
Yeah, it's
look.
just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, is that helpful?
That is so very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
very
thank
much.
you.
Okay, our next one is 3C, which is our discussion of board organizational items, including the board committees and subcommittees. And so for this one, the board officers and I are gonna split this up. And as that pulls up, just an initial reminder of our mission, vision, and goals, in that as we work through our board committees and subcommittees, I think it's important to reflect that we just started the subcommittee process last year. And so as we think through how we're going to continue to utilize the process we set up, this is a good time to reflect and make adjustments, and always seeing ourselves as board members having a growth mindset, just like we value for staff. And so when we look at this, we're going to talk about the difference between committees and subcommittees, and then dive into the communication plans for each so that we can gain some clarity and then set some additional parameters for this upcoming school year.
In just a minute.
In just a minute.
In just a
Y'all
second.
want a break?
It's not empty.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. It is 7:37 and we're in recess. We're going to start with the types of committees, and Ileana's going to kick us off for the first few slides.
So for our new board member, the district liaison committees, the role is district-led, and the role is to facilitate regular and smooth communication to and from the board, to provide board support, information, and to support committee operations. And the action is only to serve in an advisory, non-voting capacity and are not included when determining quorum unless required by law. The only exception is the educational foundation. And then the board subcommittees are board-led, and in the next slide, we'll give you a little bit more detail as to which is which. Work collaboratively to support a particular area and to prepare draft documents or other work products, and for the board's review. That's the action for the board's review and adoption.
And just the reason why the Educational Foundation is an exception is because they're district-led, but they have their own bylaws, and they're their own group. And their bylaws actually state that a board member and the superintendent will serve as in a role that is in the quorum and does have a voting. So even though it's our standard practice, the district liaison committees don't, because they have their own bylaws, theirs is unique. Mouse, there we go. All right.
And then Cass has already had a discussion with each one of us about district liaison committees. The bond oversight committee will be Kim and Paul. The SHAC will be myself. The Ed Foundation is Randy. Safety and security is Cassandra and Caroline. And then the district site-based decision, the DIC, is Marjorie. And just in general, historically, these liaison roles rotate annually, except for the BOC, in which consistency has been valued. The last year, 2 board members served on the BOC to build capacity, and this will continue on for 25-26 school year.
See if I can push the button right.
On your way.
No. Sorry, Care. Good.
Is this fine?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The district liaison committees, the communication plan, so district-led facilitate regular and smooth communication to and from the board, to provide board support information, and to support committee operations. Serving only as an advisory, so the meeting and the minutes, the agenda is facilitated through the district processes, so the administration will handle that. The board liaisons will provide update information during the board meeting.
And when we have the agenda item that is committee updates, I'm going to split that, not as because it's still committees, but I'm going to ask for district liaison updates first, and then ask for subcommittee updates, so it's really clear to everyone which ones we're talking about, because it's really important that we're just an advisor on this one, and we're not in the day-to-day operations of these committees. We're just to support with the district. Any questions about the communication plan for district liaison committees?
So I know that we discussed this, but when we do the reporting, are we gonna do a slide for that? So it's also, because sometimes the people cannot hear what anybody's saying at the dais. And so I thought it would be a great idea if we put the words of the summary of whatever we were doing on a slide.
I think that would be extremely helpful.
But it's also documented. What do you think, Dee? Because I don't wanna,
So I'm a little worried about the amount of administrative work that would be for the district liaison committees, because that means that for all of these, a slide has to be created that summarizes it.
Even if just the title of the committee came up, so that you at least know what you're talking about.
yeah, so I think,
So if like it came up in the BOC committee, Bond Oversight Committee, Kim and Paul, and then one of us who is reporting on it, at least it has the title up there, so people even know what we're talking about.
but you have to put a committee
that would help.
notes. Couldn't you just do some bullets so that we have that documented?
But we are not taking the minutes. Y'all are. So that's the catch, is like, if we are creating a slide, whose responsibility is it to create that slide?
Also, for some of those committees, like safety and security, a lot of that is not.
So when you report out, could you not send that to us about what you, I mean, when we do committee reports, I get that we have what ours is, but I think people get confused, what are you really serving on?
They don't understand it, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
That's what
What
I'm saying.
people?
The people who watch this.
Like,
So they've reported to us in writing that they're concerned
well,
that
I
they don't
know
understand.
I would
that,
say
so
it's
the
in
people
writing.
that attend, like, let's say our administrators, our area director, anybody that sits in the audience are like, I can't hear what they're saying. I don't know what they're talking about, because we kind of talk to each other on committee reports. So even if you know you're coming to the meeting, I don't know why we couldn't send that, your bullet points to D, and we put it up there. I don't know that it's like, because you're stating that you attended the Bond Oversight Committee, right? I mean, I would like for the record that I attended the Bond Oversight Committee on whatever date, and these are the 3 takeaways that I got. I mean, what are the committee reports that you're saying that can't be on a slide? I don't think it's more work.
I guess it's really gonna hold us accountable to do that, because we would each have to report a slide. I mean, so for instance, like this is the district liaison one, and then we still have the subcommittees portion of it. So we still have another one. So there's 2 separate committees that are not, one's district-led, one is board-led. So that means that would hold us as a board accountable to get the documents over to Dee ahead of time so she can make sure that it's in our presentation, right?
But you're serving on it for, I mean, so originally when we did this, and I came up with the note of you reporting to the board, or reporting out that you served, how does anybody know what you're really serving on if they can't understand you in the audience?
So what if it's a generic, I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah.
What if it's a generic, you do the slides, right? And this person, and then Cass can say, no, does this person have a report? Kim Brady, no report. Ileana, no report.
Yeah.
Marjorie, no report.
That's what I'm saying.
But
yeah.
instead of maybe no bullet points, maybe you just put the title of what it is.
That's
Can it
fine.
just be this
And
table?
So it'd be the same slide every year, every month.
every
Yeah.
month, yes, and that way we can keep
You
it.
could just do this slide, but that just helps like it, because when they can't hear and the air conditioning is going back there, and I have had several people
Yeah.
complain about that, they cannot hear what we're saying because
Sound in there
the sound in there is terrible.
It is bad.
So,
So can we
yeah, so
solve
at least
it?
have that.
We're trying to create a slide to solve an air conditioning problem. This is not impacting student achievement.
No, it is not.
But-
Yeah, but I
Let me
also
just be
think
real.
people don't
But it is
really
impacting
understand
communication.
what committee,
Yes.
you're doing all this work.
But can we take out the bullet points and just do plain slide and just,
Could we just put the chart up there
yeah, I mean.
and say, all right, Kim and Paul, do you have an
Yes,
update
that's
on the Bond
perfect.
Oversight Committee?
Yes.
Any other?
There was no meeting this month. Okay, great. Moving.
Well, and if we're not impacting,
Something.
I've
if we're
served
not
on
kind of
committees like
outcomes.
this before I actually worked in school districts, and there was always a place on the website that said committee reports. And so if there was a presentation at the committee, it was just linked there as the minutes. And then that might be an easy place to keep all the pertinent information. And then if you're putting a slide up there just announcing, the quick 2-minute
Right.
speed dating on the.
Yeah, that's all it
I got
is.
Sour
way
Patch
to put
Kids.
it.
But I think this would be a great solution.
Yes.
Because I don't think people really, when you get up there, they don't really know what you're serving. So you just go, this is your agenda item.
Yes, because it is impacting communication,
So-
for sure.
Yeah.
You might consider this, Kim, you brought out the issue that people don't know what these committees do, and there's that nice succinct definition of each one. Having that come up, bond oversight, here's the definition, and just add it in there so they get to see it every month.
And they'll
Agreed.
get
Actually
used to
take out the
seeing
middle column.
this of who serves on what. I think that would be great.
That'd be
Okay,
great.
so there will be a
It's
slide
just
that will have the
communication.
committee,
Awesome.
the liaisons, the acronym, and the description, because it doesn't have to have the BOP specification.
Great.
Yeah.
One slide.
One slide.
One slide.
One slide.
For one,
needed.
for
Yes.
this one?
And you don't have to submit anything. One slide.
Well, one slide per committee.
No, just
No, no,
this
no.
slide. And she'll just go through
This
this like
table.
it's an agenda.
Okay.
That makes it easier.
Yeah.
Just take out BOP's specification.
We can send it to you.
I have the table already.
It's ready to go.
Okay, does that make everybody feel like we have a template?
Great.
Okay, so that, this mouse is terrible, or I am, one or the other. Okay, Carolyn, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so the next one, going the other direction, is the board subcommittees. So these were established last school year, and the original intent was each of these committees would have what is in parentheses would be their focus area, and the terms of service were determined by the subcommittees, and those were added to the BOP. So you will see that the governance subcommittee had one term of service and the other two had a different term of service. And so after consulting with Kim, which was on, in the BOP, it says to, policy, it says to consult with the vice president. We did the best we could to follow the guidelines and the terms of service, but I would say that we might consider a revision to the BOP in the future with flexibility on terms of service due to board elections or reorganization, because it was nearly impossible to make this happen. And then even thinking about next year and like pre-mapping it with the guidelines, it was nearly impossible to make it happen again. So it might be good to consider some flexibility for that. So I think these are who will serve, and what is in parentheses I think is important to note. That was our original intent of what these subcommittees would serve their purpose for, and these subcommittees are intended to prepare and draft documents or work products for the board's review and adoption. So the subcommittees are not making any decisions on behalf of the board. They're simply preparing things so that the board can review and adopt things in board meetings. So a potential communication plan is to have shared meeting minutes, and those shared meeting minutes could be like this template, which is, we use Dr. Eldridge's template and started with that and just adjusted it so it's just for the subcommittees. So as a meeting date, who was in attendance from administration and board members, and then what was discussed. And one idea is that these would just go after your meeting, you email them to Dee, they would get uploaded to a folder, and that is available, that link to that folder is available in the weekly board memo, so you can click on it and see any new meeting minutes that are there. But for everybody to keep meeting minutes for these subcommittees. Thoughts? Questions?
I think this is great. I think we needed this, we've needed this, so that everyone knows whatever's happening in other
Clarification.
meetings.
Do we also need to share a slide for this one?
I think we can have a shared slide for this one too.
Okay.
The last one you had out there.
What is also important is it was not the intent that the subcommittees just have to meet because they're a subcommittee, but if we're preparing draft documents or work products for the board's review and adoption, is each subcommittee should identify what is their goal and proposed outcome for the school year. So in different subcommittees, that can mean different things, but if you meet and discuss it, and then on the August 14th meeting at our Team of 8 training, bring that back to the full board with a plan of this is what our intent to work on as the subcommittee is for the school year. That way we're all clear on what, and get feedback on that, could be an idea. So this is open for discussion. This was just a starting place. Go for it.
Who is responsible for taking the minutes or filling out this worksheet, if you will?
Good question.
Whoever the chair of the committee is.
Okay, and so that being said, can we add on the bottom, just like you would with any other board or document or committee document, you would put person taking minutes or completed by, or something to that effect, and you could put someone's name on there so we know if there's a question, who to go back to directly.
Smart.
Well, I also think it needs to say, I mean, here's topics discussed, but I think under topics discussed, it needs to be next steps. It would have been nice to know when you all were meeting, you know, I was trying to keep up with the CB 2030. But even for the rest, you know, because some people would say, you know, well, where are we on that? I don't know. I know they met.
Or actions to be taken,
Or
or action
if
plan,
any.
or actions if any,
If
yeah.
any? Like
Just put an
action plan
action.
if needed?
Between now and
or
next meeting.
What next steps, like we'll meet in 3 weeks or
I see.
something like that.
Or next meeting.
I mean,
or-
because if we're gonna, is this also, are we gonna put this in the
Folder.
memos?
Well, and last year was year one, right? So this is year two, and I think this is a good opportunity for us to adjust and see what worked and what didn't work, and to be able to review the process.
Yeah.
What helped, what didn't, what would help, how could we do better? this is a good starting point.
Based on your centralization process, might be good just to have it on the board portal.
Yeah, I think some of them, like anytime they were sent, I sent them to Harry and they were uploaded.
Onto the board portal?
There we go.
Because
That
we
folder can live there.
wanted to have a history of what we had done.
Right.
So we just need the link to that in the board memo. Because
Okay.
if there's all these links to things, and then you have to go dig in an email to find that link, and
Yeah.
if every week when you get the board memo,
It has the
you have all
formulas.
the links that you
Okay.
need, they're readily available.
Okay.
Okay, so additions that are requested are completed by, we already have topics discussed, and is it work to be completed before next meeting?
Or actions, something.
Just
Oh,
make,
next steps.
Next
Yeah,
steps.
That's a good one.
like, you know, you may say, you know, we need to all get together in a couple weeks, but then everybody's gonna check their calendar. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how specific you wanna be.
Not too specific.
I mean, because there's some things, like, for instance, I mean, the two that I was involved with last year, governance and operations, I mean, a lot of those were triggered by things happening outside. So a governance means triggered by having a policy update or something like that, or a board member request or something or other. And then that trigger would then set us up for needing to have a meeting within a certain time frame. I think it was 2 weeks for that. Finance, again, you know, as we were working through a lot of legislative things and different conversations that were happening and how that would impact, those would in effect trigger a meeting. So it wasn't necessarily like there's a meeting that's just always in place. It's a lot of times triggered by something. I would assume the same would be with leadership committee, you know, as you get closer to a date of something, you would have more meetings versus 6 months out. So I don't,
And hopefully by the end of year 2, we see a trend. Oh, this is when we met, this is when we met, to kind of have an outline for any future meetings, but in the meantime, it's only the beginning of year 2.
Right.
Right.
but I
Ms.
guess just not to
Benavides?
have a meeting, just have one.
Any
Yes,
additional
that sounds
comments?
Great, that way we're all on the same page about what's going on. Wonderful. And bullet points are great.
But who's establishing agenda for these groups? Like the operations subcommittee, Paul and Kim and I are scheduled on that. Who makes up the agenda for us? Who comes up with the ideas? Are we supposed to come up with our own ideas? Or,
That's a good question. So I think it's very established on the governance subcommittee that we're supposed to review the BOP and policies based on when they're submitted to us within 2 weeks. But on the other two, I'm not sure it's 100% clear, which is partially why I was suggesting that the subcommittees meet and identify. And if you're like, well, we don't have a proposed goal for the work products for the board's review and adoption, then on the 14th, we can discuss, like, is this necessary? Or, because the idea here is this original intent was that historically in both of the districts you guys had worked in, there were needs to discuss in a small group of the board additional information that would then go before the board. And so it was a two-way street from administration being able to say, hey, we're working on I'm gonna make this up, the budget presentation template. Can we work through this together? And then it would go to the whole board. So I think it was kind of a two-way, like how can we support administration without having to call ad hoc subcommittees? Because then it was like tracking all these ad hoc things. But to that point, Mr. Shackman, I think it's very valid. Like, this is our second year, and if we don't have a purpose, we don't need to have the committee. And that is okay
right?
to dissolve
Well,
it.
obviously, there has to be an audit committee, but.
Agreed.
And
So
really,
you
it's
see
the
my
policy
sense,
committee.
Okay, what are the items?
Yep.
Agreed. Now, I
Agreed.
think, Ms. Brady probably has some things on the operations. I know a consistent presentation for finance has been a discussion.
And we've
among
talked
the
about
board.
finance, and we do meet probably once every 6 weeks or so with our finance committee. And that's a lot of just what's been cut, what's happening. And of course, right now with the agenda and the budget, it helps a lot to have something to talk about. But there's a lot of that, or Ms. Settle will reach out and say, look, we have all these things to discuss. I really want to catch you guys up before the board meeting. Can we meet? So it definitely goes both ways, I think.
But the key is currently, as it exists in our BOB, it says that it is to support preparing draft documents or other work products for the entire board's review and adoption. So I think that's an important distinction, and this is a good opportunity this year for us to continue to go back to our purpose, and maybe we'll put the purpose at the top of the subcommittee meeting minutes too. Because if it's not meeting our purpose, we either need to refine our purpose or we need to dissolve the subcommittee.
That's right. I like the plan.
Okay. Other questions, thoughts? So just the people that are on those subcommittees meet by August 14th and be prepared with what you're thinking would be a good plan for the next school year. Okay.
Okay.
And then Miss Brady has, if I can push the button. Nope. It's gonna work a wrong way. There you go.
So, do you mind clicking on the link?
I do. If I can do it, let's see. We're gonna.
Oh, I like that when you get it, oh. Kim's
Yes.
kind of told me so.
No,
She liked.
I can't click on the link. Can I escape out of this?
Hit escape on the keyboard.
Oh, on the keyboard?
So this is the board input form that we started with a couple years ago. And this is the form that, alerts administration that you have a question or concern.
It didn't work.
One of the things I just want to keep all of us in mind is we, need to use this consistently. So if there's a problem or a concern that arises, that you use this form instead of texting or calling, or just so we have track of, so that again, we can find patterns in what we need to improve on. So one of the neat things is that once you submit, this looked really cool on the slide. Once you submit,
Hard on this, Kim.
Well.
once you submit a form, you'll now get a copy of that on your email, which will be helpful for you to track to make sure that you are getting a response about that item. I do want to caution anybody, just try not to use names. If you need to use a name, you either use the first name or just use initials. It's going to Wendy or Kim Casanon, so they're going to know who you're talking about. There's no reason for you to put someone's full name. Like Eliana Garza Rojas stole my bike today. We don't need to put that. We just put IGA,
That's gonna
stole
be
my
the
bike
test
today. Yes. So you don't need to put her whole name. And again, we look at being outcome focused, and is this really a governance issue? In other words, if Ileana planted purple flowers next to my red flowers, is that something that Wendy needs to be aware of? Probably not. So they're not pretty, and there's not two colors that go well together. So
And she's gonna call and tell me that you planted them.
yes. So don't feel like every little whiny thing has to be on this form. But use your mind, use your head, think about governance and why we are here, and what our job is here as board members.
But I will say, most of them have been extremely helpful, because it was something that helped us develop a better communication or understanding. And so it's also what you hear and what people are telling you. And sometimes that's not always available for all of us that are doing day to day.
And I would say, just remember to be brief. Again, they're gonna call you or email you back, so you can tell them the whole story from bit to bit. But keep it brief, don't use names. Remember, our role is governance and not as whiners. So please keep that in mind.
You just have to check this box, and that's how you get an email.
So just check the box if you'd like an email or tracking of your submission, okay?
Make another box, are you being a whiner?
Yes.
Yeah,
Are you
fiery
being,
type.
check yourself.
Whine.
If you are whining, do not
Oh,
send.
there's a document request now, like, can you please send me that?
Yes. So if you are asking yourself, am I just whining to whine, then do not send it. Where was I going with this? Oh, if you would like this on your phone, So I have it, so it looks like an app, and I just press it, and the document itself just pops up. Please ask one of our more high-tech IT people in the room, like the people behind me or somebody else on the board, just not me. But I have it, I just can't know how to get it there. So please ask somebody if that is something you would like to have on your phone and/or your tablet or computer.
And it does, you can also check if you would like this shared in the board report, in the board memo.
Yes.
So that everybody else will get the information. And then you hit submit. Any questions?
Any questions about that?
Yeah, I'll need that on my phone.
We got you.
Like you're gonna start submitting things tonight?
I was gonna say, but remind yourself,
Wait, slow
if I'm
roll.
whining, then do
No
not
whining,
send.
Paul.
We should
So
put something like that.
excited.
If I'm whining, do not send.
We
And
got
then-
the weeds out of the flower bed, okay?
And it
No
does,
red flowers, no purple
BBE
flowers.
local does apply, so it's important to remember that what you request, some of the, like for example, document requests, there is policy tied to specific requests and the amount of time it takes administration and the turnaround time. So just be aware that policy still applies to these requests.
And there's new legislation about that we'll cover later.
Okay.
Yay, full circle.
Okay, any questions? Ms. Benavides?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you, Kim, for all your hard work. I mean, it was,
Well,
you and Kim met for.
Kim and I did it together,
Yeah.
yes. And Cassandra put it all, make it look pretty on there too.
Well, we make a great team.
Yes.
All right, are there any other questions about committees, subcommittees, and processes for board input? All right, with that, we have reached the end of our agenda, and the time is 8:08.
So Paul, if you